A type of camera which I really like using are classic 1950s and early 60s German 35mm cameras. A lot of these are built to have really high quality and take extremely good photos. The camera I'm talking about today isn't one of the top models. In fact, it was sort of an entry model, but it is the Zeiss Contina. And the Contina was a whole range of cameras they made from about, I think just after the war, about 48 until the 1960s. And the first ones were folding 35mm cameras, and by the time they got to the late 50s, the folding had gone and they were basically a solid body. The ones of the 1960s, in my mind, are not quite as high as quality build as the mid-50s ones were. I think there was a lot of competition beginning from Japan, and production costs had to be watched, and maybe the materials were more of an cost implication. However, let's look at this model from 1958. It is what is called a 1A. As I said earlier, it's quite a simple camera. There's no rangefinder, there's no light meter. Both of those factors were quite important in cameras, and the light meter was definitely coming in. Cameras either had a rangefinder or didn't. So on here we've got manual focusing, and it is interesting. I paused there because I wanted to check. This model looks like it was for the UK market because it's actually in feet, where obviously if it was a continental camera it would be in meters. The shutter speeds go from bulb up to 300th of a second. I will be interested to see how the slow shutter speeds are. When you try one of these cameras, the problem can often be the slow shutter speed. So let's just try this at 1 second. Yeah, it's not good on the slow shutter speed, but let's try it on a quarter. Bit sluggish. 1/15. Absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. It's always interesting, I find, with these cameras, that you find some of the pre-war cameras shutters are better on the slow shutter speeds than some of the cameras after the war. However, let's get back to this. This is a manual Contina. So we have manual focusing there, and we have our aperture. It's a 3.5 Nova lens. The early ones were a Tesseract lens, but this is a Nova. And we can set the aperture here and the shutter speed here. The 1950s cameras, on the whole, were very fond of this coupling. So once you've set your aperture and your shutter speed, if you decide to change your aperture, it will be linked to your shutter speed. That was great in the 50s, but I would prefer completely independent, but that's a choice of the user. So I went and put a film through this camera in the summer. It's manual. If you get it open on the side here, simply load here to over here. Quite nice that we have a dealer's label here, and this one was from Fred Foxall from Manchester, 62 Bridge Street. So there we are. So how did I get on with it? Well, it was interesting. The first image is of Stinsford Church, and then some interesting trees here. It focuses well. This barn, I liked the shadows and the sharpness, But I did get some. It's difficult for me to actually pin down the effect of this lens, but to me you can tell it's a vintage lens. Now, maybe there's a tiny bit of fungus in it. I can't see any fungus, but you've just got a manner in which the lens performs which somehow communicates to me this is a vintage camera. That isn't to say that the quality of the images is bad. I don't think it is. I personally think that these images of Stinsford Churchyard and Stinsford Church in Dorset have a real charm to them. They have a depth. They had a reflection of light that modern lenses don't give us somehow. There's, as I said, it's difficult to absolutely pin down what the effect is. Is there slight haze there? Is there slight gaze? I don't know. But I like the results. Walking back to Dorchester across the water meadows, getting a good camera for landscape. It picked up these sheep very nicely. You do have to think about your focusing. You have to think about the exposure. But I very much enjoyed using this camera. Many thanks for watching. If you find a little Zeiss like this, why not take it out for a spin with a film? Bye for now.